Yo guys, last week at Helmsley I promised you a bike check. It was a sick weekend watching a boys race at the British Championship. If you haven't seen that video, click a link like up here somewhere. Anyway, I'm staying true to that promise, and this is my 2022 Beta Factory 300 two-stroke bike. So it's been a little while since I last did a bike check. I think it was 2 years ago when we were in lockdown. So this really is more of like an update more than a bike check, just showing what I've changed, because to be fair, over the past few years, there's been a bit of a, evolution in like my riding style, got a bit quicker, blah, blah, blah. And so I tried to change the bike and to suit me and my riding style a little bit better. I don't know if you guys have seen, but the 2023 betas have actually just came out. If you haven't saw, here's a photo. But as I said in my last bike check, in the factory team, we don't actually start with a standard bike, we just start with parts. So frames, wheels, suspension, engines, all that just comes all in parts. We just build it all up and build a complete bike. So this realistically is a 2022 Beta 300 Racing Edition. Right, so we'll start with the fundamentals, which is the frame. Now, with geometry, the frame is completely standard. The only difference between this and a standard bike is that the factory frames are actually hand welded in Italy. In the factory where they make them, they hand weld them, as opposed to the standard bikes are just welded with a machine. And literally the only reason we do this is it's a little bit stiffer and less risk of it cracking. So carrying on with geometry, the triple clamps, we're using Gecko triple clamps. These are just standard offset. Haven't even tried different offsets, I'm just pretty happy with standard. Up here with the handlebars, using Raycon handlebars. My handlebar setup, I like a stiff, like a really hard, stiff bar. I tried a few different options that Raycon had of like a softer setup, but yeah, I just couldn't get on with it. So these are like literally the stiffest ones you can get. And yeah, liking them so far. So grip setup, I'm using the Artec grips. These are super soft. Try and save my hands a little bit from blisters. Yeah, stick some grip wire on there, go a treat. I'm using the Artec hand guards. These are pretty good because they're quite flexible. They don't really break when you crash. The only thing we do is do a little mod on the actual bracket just to shorten them up so you can tighten them a little bit more, because sometimes they slip down. But yeah, since we did that mod, work a treat. So staying up in the bar area, the front brake we're using, it's standard, but it's silver. I honestly don't know what the difference is, but it's silver. Anyway, yeah, we use a braided front hose, just gets a little more powerful. And then the front caliper isn't standard either. That's a Nissan part, just for a bit more of a powerful brake. Like the speed in the Enduro GP now is mad. So yeah, the Galfa like disc is one of the most aggressive discs with like the fins in to make it a little bit sharp, take the edge off the brake pads when the wheels rotating. And then yeah, we changed the caliper for a bit of a stronger one, but the pads are completely standard, and like this works pretty well. My seat setup this year has changed a little bit, so I'm still on a standard seat height. I've tried a high seat because like a rider of my height, realistically normally you'd put a high seat on, but I just can't get on with it. I prefer the standard height seat with the bars I'm using. This is just a setup that works best for me. But this, I actually changed the cover this year. I was last year using a pyramid cover, but it was just too grippy, and like I prefer to move about a bit more on the bike and stay a bit more like loose. And I just felt it was like making me a bit like rigid, like I was getting stuck on the seat sometimes. So I've changed to this like completely smooth seat cover. It comes with a little square on you to put your time card in, but we take that off. And yeah, this works pretty well. And then we also do a little mod here on the radiators. These are actually fabricated in Beta in the factory. Just put that little like dent or little modification in them, just so that you can literally run these pins in here completely closed, so you've got more of a turning circle. And when you do that, when you have full lock, it doesn't actually hit, so just gives you a little more freedom, when you're in tight trees and stuff like that, to turn a bit sharper and not have risk of either damaging your fork or your radiator. So engine, this is a Beta Strange 300 two-stroke, and that's the engine. If I'm honest, this is something that I've changed quite a lot this year. We won the World Championship last year, but I always felt like there was improvements to be made with the engine. And so what we did was, so I'm still using a twin spark plug setup. It's got different head this year, different cylinder. It's completely different setup. We changed a bit the gearbox ratios as well. Even though I'm still using a 1449, is it? Yeah, 1449 gearing setup. sometimes I felt like I was in between gears. So instead of changing the sprocket cell, we actually changed the gearbox ratios inside, where now I've got a longer second gear. And it's really nice. Like in extreme test or something, you know, you can, in the tight stuff, you can use second gear in a corner, but that second gear will last a lot longer in a straight after. So you know, you don't need to be struggling with the gear changing up and, you know, coming out the corner. But yeah, carb, we're still on the same setup. You know, this is a completely stock carb, like straight off the shelf, straight on this bike. You know, don't do any mods to that at all. It's literally all in the cylinder and the head, and a lot of work on the CDI as well. Like Beta are really good at modding CDIs and putting different mapping in for us as well. Like I've got a mapping switch up on the top of the handlebar, so it's map 1 and map 2, so I can change to that. Like literally press a button, even when the bike's running, or even when you're actually riding along, you can change the map and you'll feel it straight away, which is quite good. Like in a Enduro GP race, or in a race where, you know, we race 7 hours, so that, you know, the weather's not going to be the same for 7 hours. It could change like a split second, and literally if it starts raining, you flick it straight into the second map and you've got an easy bike to ride. So that's been a great mod we've done this year, and unfortunately I haven't got to try it that much because I'm still out injured, but yeah, hopefully when I get back to full fitness I can put it to good use. So wheels and tyre setup, we're still on the standard wheels, standard hubs, standard rims, but we changed the spokes for a high gauge spoke, just to be a bit stronger. We do still snap them now and again, but you know, like you can't really use like too stiff of a rim in Enduro, just because you need to like really feel the terrain and the stones and everything underneath the wheels. And if you put like a motocross spec or a supercross spec rim on this, you wouldn't even feel them. So yeah, these are still a stock rim. Tyre setup, we're using Metzeler tyres still. I've actually got 3 compounds now: soft, intermediate, which was new like a few years ago, and the hard. The intermediate, I'm starting to use it a lot more. You know, we're getting some good benefits out of it, like it's lasting the full duration of the day, which sometimes you might struggle with the soft, but it's still a little bit softer than the hard when you need a little bit extra traction. Then obviously Metzeler mousse is front and rear. I do like a softer mousse. Especially in the front as well. I'd prefer to have the suspension a little bit harder and the mousse is a little bit softer. I just like to feel everything that's underneath my wheels. So yeah, that's my tyre cell. So this is another change we've done on the bike recently. It was actually last year, but I didn't do a bike check last year. We changed to HGS pipes. They're made in Holland. They've been a good addition, to be fair. The last time, 2 years ago, last time I did a bike check, we used an FMF. They were good, but the HGS has been a good addition, especially a silencer. We use a longer silencer, and it just makes the bike really clear, like clean throughout the whole of the rev range, you know. So that's been a good addition, to be fair. I know it's looking a bit tatty at the minute, but this is actually my training bike, so just forget that. So rear brakes, just to touch on that, the disc we're using is a Galfa 5mm thick solid disc. I'm pretty heavy on the rear brakes, so I use a 5mm just to you know, absorb a little bit more heat, and brakes a little bit less than like a standard disc, so it's a little bit better for me during like an enduro race. Caliper standard, tube standard, and this up here, we won't show you that. And then yeah, here we're using the Gecko rear brake lever, Gecko foot pegs. So suspension, yeah, still using the KYB forks and the SAC shock, the ZF shock, but you know, we changed it a lot over the past, you know, couple of years since I did my last bike check, especially like the fork. Like I've dropped the spring rates a lot this year. You know, last year was just crazy with spring rates I was using. I was just way out of my setting, but we won the World Championship anyway. But you know, there's always improvements even when you're winning. So this year I feel like we've made a good improvement inside the fork. Still stock material. Like if you buy a Beta factory buy, this is the exact suspension that'll come in it. So you know, we're not like lying or anything about that. Racing edition, not factory edition. But yeah, I feel like we've made a good improvement inside the fork this year. And then the shock, I'm still using the same spring, pretty much the same setting as last year. There's a slight change at the top of the stroke inside there, which I think is a good improvement again. But yeah, I've just had a bit of a tough year, so the results aren't really showing what we've done. But yeah, I feel like overall the suspension is a lot better than last year. And then I'd say probably the last mod that we do, which is a good addition. You can see here on the rad scoops, here's where my dog Alba's actually bit the end. But yeah, I sometimes catch my boot on here and completely rip them off the radiator. So what we do is actually cut this here, close them up with rivets and a little bracket inside just to close them in a little bit. And yeah, I can sort of grip the bike a bit better with my legs. and don't get my boot stuck. If you've seen the 2023 bikes, you'll have noticed that they've actually changed this design and incorporated the feedback that we gave them into the new bike, so that's a good addition. And then yeah, just some other little bits around the bike. So graphics are Blackbird, you know, coloured parts and stuff around the bike, they're all Gecko, made in Italy by the factory. Standard height gear lever, just fill the end with silicone, stop the mud going in. Arctic bash plate, that's actually the one with the linkage protector, so if you like ram a log or anything, you know, the bike just sort of, it just helps it to slide over as opposed to just getting stuck on the linkage, you know. Use the TM Designs chain block, a bit stronger. DID chain, them things last like fucking 100 hours or so. But yeah, apart from that, like, what I'm trying to say is the bike is pretty standard, you know. Like, what I suppose the only other real big thing we changed is the wiring loom. As I said, I got a mapping switch on there. That's the starter button, this is the kill switch, and obviously I got the light switch behind there. So, you know, all the sort of gubbins that comes on a standard bike, we just take that straight off and change the wiring loom for something that's literally like less than half the weight. Because the standard wiring loom, you know, for the horn and everything, it's actually quite heavy if you've ever felt one. So we just take that straight off, put this racing wiring loom on. But anyway, yeah, that is my Beta Factory 300 two-stroke. As you can see, it's based on a standard bike. You know, we change a few parts to go and race World Championship and make it as fast as possible. And this bike goes pretty fast sometimes. But yeah, it's as close to a standard bike as you'll probably see in the Enduro GP paddock, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I hope you like the video. I hope you like the bike more than anything. In next week's video, I'm actually going to give you a tour of my camper van from Race Space. A lot of you guys have been asking about it, want to see inside it, and it's actually going up for sale soon, so check out the video. Can't wait to ride it again at the Italian GP in a few weeks. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. See you in a bit.